This is Proxy Countdown. Welcome to the big show for the week of June 15th, 2026. Alongside my tag team partner, Matt Mascardi, I'm Damian Rawlis on today's countdown. Lead independent directors continue to be CEOs in training. Lachlan Murdoch gives himself more money but promises he had nothing to do with it. Investors hate one CEO's pay. Exxon hearts Texas and loathes ESG. And on the big vote, Matt puts on some Lululemon. You do Lululemon, right?
Yeah, the sheer kind.
Okay. Let's start with our top stories. So it's been a while. It's been almost 3 weeks since we've done a show. So I had a lot of filings to look through at major large cap companies. 130 filings since May 28th. The headlines: lead independent directors continue to be kings. We've been covering this all year. At TYSON Foods, lead independent director Jeffrey Schomburger will become CEO.
Ooh.
Replacing Donnie King, who will remain on the board. And at StandardAero, lead independent director Paul McElhinney will become CEO and chair, succeeding CEO and chair Russell Ford. So he's also getting a $20 million golden hello, which kind of weird because he's already there. But
yeah, does he vote on his own golden hello?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a great vote to have.
We're losing one of our few female CEOs at CLOROX. Linda Rendle, who's quite young actually, took over pretty recently. She's stepping down for health reasons. We're also losing one of our most talked about overboarded chronic DEI flippers. Well, we're losing him from one company. Dmitri Stockton is stepping down at DEERE, although this is weird for a director. He's stepping down in 2027. I don't know what the ego on this guy to announce this a year in advance. You don't really see that for directors too often.
The early director step down is not common. Yeah.
And at Microsoft, Epstein files bro Reid Hoffman is stepping down. So I don't know. Those are the top stories. Some of the other things that we always follow, we look at this down to 2F movement. We're falling under 3 women on the board. At Gladstone Investment, they elected a guy named George Chip Stellis III. The reason why I picked this one is that he was immediately named to 3 committees, which is a bit odd. That's Compensation Committee, Nominating Committee, Valuation Committee. And I was looking, and there's only one woman who serves on any of the board committees there at that company, Catherine Gorka. But then I realized there's only one woman who's on the board committees there because she's only a woman on the board. So, yeah. Anyway. Lots of stupid money stories to report, mostly in the forms of golden hellos. But let's start with Lachlan Murdoch. CEO chair at Fox, that's Lachlan Murdoch, also the company's #1 shareholder with, I don't know what it is, about 40% of voting power. They're raising his target annual bonus to $9 million and his target annual equity award to $20 million. If you do all the math with the possible payouts, he's basically given himself about a $24 million raise every year. But it does say in the filing that Mr. Murdoch recused himself from all discussions and votes regarding his compensation adjustments.
Oh, at least they were clear about that.
Yeah. Is there any way we can believe that? Why would an investor believe that?
Because they said it.
Okay. CFOs continue to get huge golden hellos. A couple I looked at this week. Syncora, they have a new CFO, $10 million. Trade Desk, $10 million. At UL Solutions, a special one-time $20 million equity grant to CEO Jennifer Scanlon. I love when they just get these off policy. They always call them special one-time. So does that mean they can't give her $20 million again? If they want to give her money next year, it has to be $19 million or $21 million. So it's not a 2-time $20 million award. I don't know. At Truist Financial, they have a new CEO, Michael Lyons. He is going to get a $40 million golden hello package, including $38 million in equity and about $3 million in cash. And how about this? At Marvel Technology, a director, Daniel Dern, is becoming the CFO. Again, this is one of my biggest trends of the year. Directors leaping into the C-suite. So he gets to be CFO, and he's getting a golden hello worth $41 million. And to your point, what part of the process was he on with voting on his
I'm sure he
$41 million
recused himself
golden hello?
after his 10-year relationship with all the board members.
Sure.
Yeah.
Then I'm tracking some of the dumb stuff that happened this week, including at C.H. Robinson Worldwide. They gave a special equity award to their Chief Strategy and Innovation Officer of $8 million in equity. For one of the reasons was, quote, designed to drive strategic and talent development outcomes. So they gave the Chief Strategy Officer extra money to do more strategy. What? I mean, I don't know. I just don't think that should be allowed. I don't understand.
But it falls in the same category
Make something else
as these sudden retention bonuses.
How about they're just not allowed?
They just seem to be money to do your job. I don't.
This one cracked me up, and I'm sorry, Mitch Little, but I'm gonna make fun of you a little bit. At Microchip Technology, they appointed a former executive, Mitch Little, to join the board, right? Already a bit of a problem. But they did something I have never seen before. In his bio, in the 8K, they mentioned specifically that he authored 2 books. Yeah. They actually cited that he wrote 2 books. One called Shiftability, Creating a Sustainable Competitive Advantage in Selling, and Cusp, Leading by Serving When Outcomes Matter Most. Okay, I don't know if he had control over this or he just is pumping his books, but I've never seen an 8K filing like selling someone's books or even mentioning that someone wrote the books. But I had to look at these books, and I hate to make fun of you, Mitch, but here are the books. The first one is self-published through Amazon, right? So,
okay.
I mean, I don't know. I don't want to be a snob here. Maybe that's a book.
Kind of not a book, yeah.
The second one's worse. It's a PDF, and it's not published, and it's 48 pages long.
Wow.
So instead, now we're going beyond making up skills and the skills matrix and the proxy statements. Now we're just kind of making up books that they wrote as part of the reason why that they're appointed.
So here's where I think you're wrong.
Okay.
I think Mitch Little wrote his own bio. And therefore,
is it self-published bio.
It's a self-published bio with the self-published books. But if you're going to, if you take that out of his bio,
free advertising.
Right? So here's the question: if you take that out of his bio, how long is his bio?
Yeah,
even visibly on the page.
Microchip Technology appointed Mitch Little.
So you need the books.
Yeah. Okay.
It actually very legitimately is very small as a bio if you take that out.
I mean, not only is it a PDF and 48 pages, but it also, that second book, it's not even full sentences and paragraphs. If you look at it, it looks like prose poetry. It's like a single sentence, then a space, then the next line. It's not even sentences that run together anyway.
I mean, his bio said before this that he was a senior vice president of client engagement at Microchip.
Yeah, which is already a problem.
So he's already an insider who retired, is coming back to the board.
Yeah.
There's nothing else. So he had to have the books in there. So run-on sentence or not.
And then finally, I'm going to end with the top stories with something that's sort of smart, I guess. CME Group. What's not smart is that the chair and CEO, Terrence Duffy, is going to become executive chair. I don't know why he can't just leave. But the new CEO is this former CFO, Lynn Fitzpatrick. So they just appointed the CFO. How was that for an idea?
Not the lead independent director?
No, were
they not available?
Kind of the next up in line, the C-suite, and there's not even a golden hello attached. I mean, that's how you kind of do it, right? You don't spend $40 million in golden hello packages. You build a deck of talented executives, and even if it's a woman, you actually hire them.
Well,
Okay.
so just as a side note,
Go ahead.
because Terrence Duffy is staying on and becoming
true.
executive
That's true.
chair, right?
Executive chair.
Really, did they hire anybody, or did Terrence
No.
Duffy just stick around, make the money, and have less to do?
We should actually, because we're probably the only company that tries things and cares and attempts to really change the data and make statements about the data. Maybe in these instances, maybe when a CEO leaves and stays as executive chair, we should call the new CEO an interim CEO. Maybe we should start calling them that.
Yeah, I would.
Right?
I actually think we need a slightly more
Or
derogatory term.
babysitted, babysatted,
babysat CEO. Yeah.
Moving on, proxy cage
Junior
matches.
CEO. Yeah.
I'm going to spare you. There's nothing truly great going on in proxy cage matches. I'm going to skip that one. I'm going to spare the audience on that one. Vote results table. 145 meetings. This is basically the end of the proxy season, but 145 meetings I looked at since May 28th. I guess the big story still is this dwindling total of shareholder proposals. So there's only 77 proposals out of those 145 meetings, but really they only came from 33 companies. And these are large cap companies. So they do seem to be disappearing. And in fact, a lot of these came from Meta and Alphabet had 10 each. So 20 of the proposals coming from only 2 companies. But the top story really is Warner Brothers Discovery. 84% of shareholders voted no on David Zaslav's pay package. And I'm just peeking ahead. The only CEO to lose say on pay in the last 3 weeks. So they found one, and it's David Zaslav, I guess. I don't know why. We talked about this on our Business Pants Friday show. I don't know why it's him. I don't know why it's not others, and I don't know why the number is so damn high. That is incredible. An 84% rejection. But there you go. That's what happened.
I mean, it is odd to blanch at the number that David Zaslav was going to get.
150 million, I think.
And not to blanch at the $1 trillion pay package for Elon Musk or there are many pay packages now. The Rivian CEO, there are many pay packages that are just absurd.
Especially with all these special grants that we cite every week.
And it just seems like we're arbitrarily picking. I don't like that guy, so I don't know.
And there's not like a single controlling shareholder here. It's a typical profile where the biggest shareholders are like Vanguard, BlackRock, right? It's not like there was one person who made this decision. It was everybody. Everyone got together.
Simultaneously, yeah.
Other big stories of the week, ExxonMobil, they were kind of the biggest, loudest baby of the last few weeks. So they had a Dexit vote to move to Texas. That passed. 71% said yes. They had one at Voyager Technologies too. So 2 companies moving to Texas. But I also cite ExxonMobil for having the most condescending titles of shareholder proposals I've ever seen. The first one was called Independent Chair, a proposal overwhelmingly defeated on 16 separate occasions since 2000, right? And that got 15% yes. I don't know if that's. I guess that's overwhelmingly defeated. I don't know anymore. What is a significant number?
It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
They lost. And
the second proposal at Exxon was they called it requesting company to modify its voluntary retail voting program to provide multiple options not aligned with the board's recommendations. Anyway, Target. Target had investors had a chance to weigh in on this failed succession planning, right? Brian Cornell, really one of the most, I don't know if I'm using too heavy of a term here, disliked CEOs, basically pushed out. I would
call him a top underperformer.
So they allowed, so he picked someone at Target to take over. He stayed on as executive chair, right? He only got 13% no against him as a director. And then an independent board chair proposal got about 40% support. So looks like there's some movement to do something But I don't know. I mean, the target investors kind of blew it. I don't know. I feel like they had an opportunity to do something there. And we're already covering other stories. LGBTQ plus community, which represents 1.7 trillion in spending in the U.S. Target, one of the companies that has lost a lot of their spending power. So I don't know. I thought investors maybe would have made a bigger splash at Target. Moving on to other votes, we had 3 wins, 3 shareholder proposal wins, a special shareholder meeting improvement at HubSpot, simple majority vote standard at Five Below, and a majority voting standard at El Pollo Loco Holdings. Those are some traditional governance proposals. So despite what you read in the Harvard University corporate governance blog, which has a story this week that says no ESG related shareholder proposals pass in 2026 proxy season, don't believe it. That because we track 3 that just passed. For some reason, they're excluding governance.
Yeah, G is not a thing.
They're excluding governance votes, but they shouldn't be. It's still an important part of the ESG proposals. The other thing worth mentioning is just the dire state of some of these anti-DEI votes. I mean, these are just brutal. I'm going to highlight a few of them. Dick's Sporting Goods had one called Women's Rights Related Business Risk and Decision Framework. I'm guessing this had something to do with trans people. 0.06% yes.
Wow.
Brutal. And then Airbnb had 3 brutal ones. One is risks relating to digital services. Another is discrimination and charitable support. And the third is risks of politicized divestments. 0.06%, 0.04%, 0.09%. I mean, this is just pathetic, honestly.
Well,
The hate groups. Yeah.
Their overall average is going to come up because they have done a number of proposals this year that are independent chairs and, simple majority voting or things like that. So,
but their brutal hate, their fun hate parade is getting stomped on.
Yeah, it's not doing so well.
And then we talked about Meta and Alphabet having the most proposals with 10 each. But I'm going to highlight something I think that's relatively interesting, at least. We talk about all the time how really America has hit a very dangerous wall with these dual-class companies. Like what used to be quaint, we'd have controlled companies and investors would kind of adjust accordingly. We're now looking at that most of these controlled companies are the ones responsible for basically setting government policy, right? They're the ones controlling it. You got the AI companies, you got your tech companies, but when you look closer at some of the votes at these companies, like at Meta, they had a proposal, annual vote regarding dual class capital structure. They're trying to get rid of it. 26% said yes. Disclosure of voting results by share class, 20% said yes. Also at Alphabet, equal shareholder voting, 31% yes. Basically, all of the non-dictator held
it's about half of the
shares at these companies are screaming for change. So, this is never reported on, but to me, it's something. I don't know. I don't know where we go with this.
Something is that we should not ever, like SpaceX just IPOs, and we okay a worse governance structure,
even worse than Meta,
like worse by exponentially worse.
Yeah.
Investors are not looking at the outcomes at the companies where they allowed it 10 years ago and saying, we don't want to repeat the same mistake where we get in a position and we can't make a change. Instead, they're okaying it again and again and again. And like 5-10 years from now, they're going to be upset and you're going to see the same votes. 20% no, except that's the majority of minority shareholders. They just don't have any power. It's going to be things like that. So I don't know what investors are doing. We know that this doesn't work for investors. We know that you want the rights when you want the rights. Why are we upset now at Meta and we're voting this way when you could vote not to include dual class shares in your portfolio? You could vote against dual class everywhere.
Moving on to Say On Pay, we already covered the biggest story, Warner Brothers Discovery. We still have the same pattern any company where they're getting even a little bit of dissent, like at Fidelity National Information Services, 30% rejected pay, but an average support of directors at 98%. And at Apollo Global Management, 29% rejected pay, but an average support of 99% for their directors. So the same old story there. Moving on to directors, this is probably I don't know if I made this prediction. Maybe I made this at the CII conference. I really thought we'd have some movement and votes against directors this year. I just thought with the lack of shared proposals, and the changing ball game there, that people would start throwing some dissent at directors. But I'm not seeing it. Honestly, I don't even have anything to say. The only thing that stood out to me was at TKA Group Holdings, just because I thought it was funny. That's it. The Rock. The wrestler, The
Dwayne
Rock
Johnson, yeah,
he got 20% no.
That's a little sad for him.
I just thought it was funny that at all places you're voting against the most famous wrestler in the land at a wrestling company. So I just thought it was funny. But the only trend I noticed over the past few weeks, and I don't know what it all means, is that I noticed that on classified boards, we're starting to see the most dissent. And I cited at least 8 companies here: Arista Networks, DocuSign, Rocket Companies, Fidelity, etc., where while there weren't many directors up for a vote, a large amount of them were getting up to 20, 30% against. And I don't know if it's because it's a passive aggressive vote against the classified board structure. I don't really know what's going on, but it's happening much more at classified companies. So take it for what you will.
Well, we'll come back to the classified board thing.
And that's the rest is fluffed. That's all. That's really all I have from the proxy, from all the votes for the last 3 weeks. I'm going to end on this. We do still have some proxy season is not completely dead. The rest of June, next week, Nvidia is a big one. They're now at a $3+ trillion market cap. I mean, that's the biggest one. Lululemon, which you're going to talk about, Dell. There's still some big ones coming up. So with that, I hand it off to you, Lululemon.
All right. Let's talk about Lululemon. It
Yeah,
was a
let's do
big
it.
year for Lululemon. We
talked
covered it
a lot
bunch
about
of
Lululemon
times.
this year, yeah.
We talked about it a bunch, but we're going to rehash some of it. Lululemon was in the middle of a Chip Wilson campaign. If you don't know who Chip Wilson was, he was the founder / CEO / chair of Lululemon. He put together the board when it IPO'd, and he got kicked off of the board and out of the company for saying really rude things about his customers and being sort of a misogynist pig.
Which is an extreme outlier in this world, right? Because there's a lot of horrible things that executives do. So, but to kick him off the board for it it's a massive moment.
It's not a normal move. Yeah, it takes a lot.
It takes a lot.
But Chip Wilson's campaign, since basically the end of last year, up until the agreement in May that he made with the board, was sort of a referendum on board entrenchment mechanisms and how they need to be dissolved. He effectively was asking for board seats. He said, quote, "It is clear to the world that Lululemon is special but in need of change. As I've stated for years, Lululemon needs visionary creative leadership to thrive. The simple truth is that the current board lacks these skills, and as a result, Lululemon is unable to win back the confidence of its critical stakeholders and regain commercial momentum. The nominees I put forward today are the change that is needed to redefine Lululemon and begin this company's next chapter of success."
Before you go on, I do love to point out that it is always in these moments, in these activist investor moments, whatever you call it, this is the time when they actually tell you that the boards actually do
important.
matter.
Correct. That's
right.
That's the first thing that you notice.
And investors seem to listen. When you look at dissent votes during these times, investors agree. So I don't know why we're seeing 99% average yes at other boards. And by the way, you'll have to explain to me, what is so special about Lululemon? Why is it special? It makes
the
pants
yoga pants
when you work out. Okay,
yeah.
Anyway.
Lululemon actually represented a piece of zeitgeist in the 2020 time,
Sure.
2021 time frame.
Great.
When everybody wore
Everyone
yoga
stayed home
pants.
because
That
of COVID.
it was just a fashion moment. Like a lot of people decided yoga pants was the thing to
I
wear
don't know if I'd call
everywhere.
that special, but go ahead.
I don't know that it's special. I think it was more lucky than special. But he's been on a disparagement rampage since late last year. Lululemon, here's some headlines. Lululemon founder is blasting the company for selling sheer leggings, calling it a new low. Lululemon founder Chip Wilson blames board for total operational failure in Get Low launch. Meanwhile, in 2013, Lululemon recalled nearly 20% of their pants for being too sheer.
That's a lot of pants. Yeah.
This is not like a new phenomenon for yoga pants. In fact, under Chip Wilson, this was a problem. He was the
2013.
CEO at that point.
When did he officially leave the board? Do you have that date?
I believe it was roughly 2015, 16.
Got it.
But he basically launched this board shakeup. At the same time he launched it, he nominated 3 independent directors and submitted a proposal to declassify the board. Lululemon is a classified board, okay?
Yeah, under his watch, it was.
He created the classified board when they IPO'd.
Yeah.
He handpicked the directors on the classified board that is now no longer fit to do their jobs.
Not only that, but he was the chair of that declassified board who set the agenda. He could have gotten rid of that declassified board at any time.
Any point. It was very convenient for him to have a classified board, but not as convenient now when he's not there for him.
That is just classic.
But Lululemon, with the sort of gentle, slow drip torture of Chip Wilson, ended up settling in May with Wilson. The agreement includes appointing 2 of Wilson's board nominees, former co-CEO Mark Maurer, so a co-CEO, and a former ESPN chief marketing officer, Laura Gentile.
Wait, what is On? That's where Mark... What is
On
Mark?
is a Swedish shoe company.
Okay.
So
Good that I've never heard of it, but yeah.
At least it's adjacent to...
It's adjacent, but,
to what Lululemon does.
But didn't he... Was it Chip or was it a different company where he didn't like the choice of someone coming from Nike? Was it Chip?
That is Chip, because the new CEO at Lululemon, replacing Cal McDonald, is Heidi O'Neill,
who they say
came from Nike.
Who they say basically single-handedly was the revolution behind the women's wear at Nike, put it on the map.
Yeah, he didn't like Heidi O'Neill.
But he wants a guy from a Swedish shoe store because I like sneakers. I know a lot of sneaker brands. I've never even heard of that one.
Well, that one he likes. And
likes that
Heidi
one.
O'Neill, the Nike, the largest shoe brand, maybe outside of Adidas, he doesn't like.
Got it.
But the board still acquiesced, partially because 40% of the board he chose, right?
Okay.
They're still there after, since he was the CEO, and it's been almost a decade since he was the CEO. They also agreed to take necessary steps to appoint an additional new independent director in October of this year. A third director and one additional incumbent director will not stand for re-election in 2027.
Really, it's kind of like a fourth almost, right? Because you're
basically
you're
a full replacement.
Yeah, and it's one that I'm sure he'll have a say in who's leaving, right?
He wants a say in everybody,
right.
In everything.
That's a lot of power.
The company will recommend the stockholders vote in favor of Mr. Wilson's proposal to declassify the board. So,
which means it'll pass.
So now the board will be behind it, the company will be behind it, and investors generally are behind it.
We've never seen a board recommend something of that level, a management proposal where the voters say no. I mean, they always agree.
If they were to agree, if the proposal is approved, the company will submit for stockholder approval in 2027 a proposal to amend the restated certificate of incorporation to fully declassify the structure of the board and provide for annual election of directors in 2027, effective of the 2028 annual meeting.
It is amazing. I always have to giggle that it takes this damn
You couldn't
long.
do it once. You couldn't just do it right now, apparently.
Yeah. Well, you could. I mean, you ignore director votes, you ignore shareholder proposals, even when they pass. You ignore these so-called non-binding say-on-pay votes. But in this one area, you stick to the letter of the law, right? Like everything
there's
has
no way to ignore anything.
No way to ignore
We got to
anything.
follow those rules.
Yeah.
And Wilson, in exchange, what the company got from Chip Wilson was he agreed not to badmouth the company for 18 months.
Now, you should stop there because this is the story. This is why he won. Because there was a lot of fighting, a lot of back and forth, including the board saying that Chip is a disgrace. He's a creep.
The board wouldn't add Chip Wilson to the board because he asked to be on the board because they actually pointed out he has a pattern of bringing in people who have been accused of sexual harassment, and their investigations showed that there are problems with Chip Wilson himself and that it would do damage to the brand to add the man who's bad-mouthing the brand to the brand.
But the badmouth thing was so persistent and bad that it got them to actually make an agreement with him, which they didn't have to do. I mean, they didn't have to even do this. He doesn't own a controlling stake in the company.
He owns just under 9%.
That's not enough to move mountains.
And the second part is he has to vote in accordance with the board's recommendations and respect all proposals submitted by stockholders at the stock.
Well,
so he has to vote with the board.
He has to vote no on all the proposals.
So here's a little bit of background context I wanted to go over. In 2026 so far, there have been 14 shareholder proposals that were filed in an effort to remove some sort of board entrenchment mechanism. That includes things like simple majority, director majority voting, so even proxy access.
Wait, only 14?
Only 14. And 7 of the 14 were filed by John Chevedden. These are the ones that have been voted on, and I have results for. So there might actually be a couple more that I don't have results on yet. One declassification at Zscaler in 2026, only 2026.
Well, yeah, okay. I was gonna say we don't see a lot of classified boards anymore, but I'm surprised. That's a very low number. I'm surprised by that.
Well, the average vote for a board removing some sort of board entrenchment mechanism is roughly 22%. This is totally in line, but it's totally in line with your vote against directors at declassified boards or classified boards, right?
Yeah, right.
So roughly what we're seeing is about 1 in 4 to 1 in 5 investors shares are unhappy with board entrenchment mechanisms, right?
As they should be.
As they should be. As we talked about, Chip Wilson is the reason why Lululemon has a board entrenchment mechanism.
Yeah.
He's the one who's upset about it, but he picked Martha Morfitt in 2008, David Musafer, 2014. Musafer is one of the directors who's agreed to step down as a result of Wilson this past year, right? Like to make room for Wilson appointees. Musafer was a Wilson appointee, so a Wilson appointee is stepping down for a Wilson appointee. Michael Casey, Emily White, 40% of the board that existed before Wilson started were Wilson picks. And now we're adding 2 Wilson members. And he demands declassification.
No, you're adding 3 members, don't forget, because one's coming in
4
October.
over time, right?
4 over time.
So basically it's going to be fully Chip Wilson's board again.
Wow.
Which it kind of already was. So it's already nuts. But I went in a dive on classified boards. You and I agree classified boards are ridiculous. Like, it's a stupid system, particularly because one of the things in the Lululemon agreement is that the members that Chip Wilson is putting up will not be up for a vote. They will be added the day after the AGM as Class 1 directors with 3-year terms, right?
Yeah.
So the Class 1's up for election now, and they're going to be added as Class 1 directors. Their first vote won't be until 2029.
The level of hypocrisy with this guy. I mean, so he's calling to declassify the board, yet he is intentionally wants to insulate his own directors from the vote.
His own directors from the vote until 2029, okay?
Yeah.
But I asked the question, like, we talk about how classified boards are bad, and I basically wanted to go through some of our data and figure out whether they are actually bad or whether they're roughly the same. what I found was that classified boards, on average, have slightly more insiders. They tend to, like, you add an executive, 25% insiders on the average classified board, 21% for non-classified.
Pretty close, yeah.
They have more consolidated influence, 41% max influence versus 33% max influence.
So they really control the board, yeah.
They're much more controlled. They actually have roughly the same, but slightly more core industry knowledge on a classified board. 43% of directors on classified boards have core industry knowledge, where 41% on non-classified.
Okay.
It's pretty, but you're not getting like a dumber board, right? Like a board that knows less. They actually have lower tenure. The average classified board tenure is 7.4 years and 7.9 on non-classified
Yeah, but isn't that like
boards.
dog years? I mean, when you're only voted on once every 3 years, isn't it like a different?
You basically get 2 elections and then you step down.
So I don't know if you should measure it the same way.
They're less connected on average, mostly because they're more connected to the CEO.
I was going to say, yeah.
But they're less connected to each other. The CEO is choosing them. And they have roughly the same performance. They have at 509 versus 496. It's almost exactly the same TSR performance for these directors. So the Lulu vote then, and this is where I'm going to end it, with just focused on, forget the voting for the directors, right? Voting on declassifying the board. The declassify the board vote that Chip Wilson has put on the agenda and the board will support. At this point, Lulu is already committed to the Wilson candidates after the AGM, and the way they structured the declassification process, you wouldn't have a vote on any of these directors in a full director slate until 2028.
Right.
So what you're really voting on is, do we want to vote out Chip Wilson's members in 2028, or do we want to vote on them for the first time in 2029? That is the whole vote.
Yeah.
That's the vote, right? Because Wilson is committed only for 18 months not to yell at the company.
That's
18
true.
months from now.
I forgot about that part. That's an important, actually, distinction, right?
He could start disparaging the company 18 months from now again.
And his directors will still be on the board and no one will have voted on them.
And no one will have had an actual say on whether or not those. So really, if you declassify, you can remove Wilson candidates at the next full AGM, which would be 2028. They will serve effectively for, 24 months instead of the full 3-year term. Insider power will diminish if you declassify this board. You can get rid of Wilson from the board. So if you're voting to declassify the board, what you're voting is really, how quickly can I get rid of Wilson's directors? That's what you get to vote on.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, at least so far in the short term, there's not exactly a happy Wilson chip bounce going on in the stock price. It just continues to go down. It's not like they're like, oh, great, Chip's back.
If you leave the board classified, Wilson gains control using the classified board system. So here's my question to you. I think declassifying the board is always what you do here if you're an investor. But if you're Chip Wilson, are you gaslighting investors? Because you have set it up such that your directors are insulated for the longest possible time in a classified board system. You've spent basically you only are asking for declassification before you've put your director, before you won the director slots, and they gave you effectively four directors on this board. Mm-hmm. Now, do you actually want them to lose? Are you counting on investors? When Chip Wilson votes himself with his 9%, doesn't he vote against declassification with his board members on the board?
He's not allowed to, is he?
He's supposed to vote with management. But
honestly, I don't even understand the declassification push, because I mean, originally he was doing it because it's to remove that mechanism gives you a chance to kind of take over the board all at once, right? But now that he's made an agreement with the company, he's adding on his own directors, he doesn't even need it anymore. The whole thing smells of like short-termism, no planning, just trying to get this guy to shut up. Like, I don't even know if the board knows why it made any decision, or I don't even know if Chip knows why he's making any decisions. It just seems like a mess.
I don't get, is Chip Wilson putting himself in a position where he's enough board support that they will elect him to the board and or make him the CEO, right?
I mean, I think that's clearly what he's going for, no?
Because he's bought himself 2 full years with the progress of the declassification.
But what makes you think shareholders are going to vote out anyone anyway?
Well, and therein lies the rub, right? Like,
that's why I don't know why he's pushing for it.
Last year, investors voted for the Class 3 directors, and they got exactly the same results you just rattled off. They got roughly 25 to 30% against last year. And there was not a declassification proposal on the table at Lululemon last year. It was just straight disaffection with classified board.
And I'm sure 9% of that was him.
I'm sure it was.
Yeah.
It likely was because he's already started his disparagement tour.
He was pissed off about everything, yeah.
So, look, my final takeaway here is it's a mess. Yeah. And nothing Chip Wilson is going to do is going to improve it. The only thing you can do to improve it as an investor is you declassify the board and get rid of Chip Wilson. Get rid of the other board members, but Chip Wilson.
You introduced something here that I hadn't even considered, is that you're probably right. He's trying to become CEO again. Because what I didn't understand in the first place is that a founder, a former executive with almost 10% of the shares has a pretty large say in the company. Can pick up the phone anytime and suggest improvements. And so I didn't really understand his ego in the first place, why he needed to come back so desperately, other than the fact that maybe he's bored in retirement. Because one thing we know about retail especially is that there is no secret sauce. I mean, just bringing Chip back is not going to magically make yoga pants sell better. So again, this just seemed like the raving lunatics of an egotist who just needs to be in control again, right? I just don't understand it, honestly.
The worst part about this is...
It's made the company look dumb in the meantime.
Look, the fact is, Chip Wilson spent the better part of a year talking about this board is not qualified. The current board is not qualified. 40% of the board he chose. And then when he had a chance to nominate directors, here's a quote from an analyst at Morningstar named David Schwartz. The nominees appear to be fine. First of all, deep analysis. Appear to be fine.
Yeah. He was just looking at their pictures, by the way. He wasn't even
appear to be fine. Although only one of the three has direct experience in Lululemon's industry.
That seems pretty low, yeah.
So he went out, he could have chosen anyone on earth to be a nominee at Lululemon, and the 3 people he chose, only one of them actually had experience after he spent all this time saying the board does not have the experience.
Yeah.
He hand chose 40% of the board that's still there, and the 3 nominees he hand chose to disrupt the board, only one of them had the experience he was talking about.
But in the meantime, there have been so many negative articles about Lululemon over the last year. So the takeaway from the consumers is just that this company is a disaster. And then they also learned that Chip Wilson is a misogynist pig, right? And is connected to sexual harassment cases. So it's a lose-lose for consumers. So that they've been told that the company is a disaster, and if the old guy comes back, he's a pig. And you're talking about a customer base that is largely women. So there's no wins here for anyone, right?
No one wins,
right?
And
you shut them up, and Lululemon board, you shut them up a little too late because I feel like the damage has been done.
In which case, the real takeaway here is that the Lululemon board could not, because most of them were picked by Chip Wilson in the first place,
right,
did not have the ability to stand up to Chip Wilson, because the right move, if you're an investor, is to stand up against Chip Wilson and say, get out.
Yes, because you know what? The company would have won this vote this year. And if they just stayed on this story of Chip being a horrible person, they eventually would have, the whole thing would have eventually gone away.
I mean, better than that. Like,
let him keep screaming, but he's a jerk.
You could have very easily just said, Chip Wilson wants you to think our board doesn't have experience doing, what Lululemon does. The fact is, Chip Wilson handpicked 40% of us, and the ones he picked to replace us, only one of them actually has experience doing what it is that Lululemon does. So Chip Wilson does not have a problem with our skills and our ability. Chip Wilson has a problem that he is not controlling this board. He's not the one in power.
That those directors just helped to elect a woman from Nike, right? And give her a chance. I don't know. I just think this cooperation agreement they signed with Chip Wilson, I just think is a disaster. Honestly.
I think the whole thing ends up being a disaster, and they should be saying, like, if they had said Chip Wilson is not replacing the board with higher skill people, he's replacing a board with Chip Wilson people, and what you get when you're a Chip Wilson person is that they did the internal investigation about sexual harassment and problems with Chip Wilson, right? Chip Wilson disparaged not just Lululemon now, he disparaged his own customers to get him thrown out of the company to begin with. So what on earth are we getting with Chip Wilson that's better than what we've got right now? The whole thing is a disaster, and if you're an investor, you vote for declassifying the board and literally vote out as soon as possible Chip Wilson and Chip Wilson's directors, all of them, the 40% that were remaining from Chip Wilson's earlier tenure, they all need to go.
Well, you're also tacitly making the argument that this is one of the problems to begin with, having a founder CEO who's also the chair, who sets the agenda, who basically nominates who he wants to, because this is what happens when you have like years of crony directors following the will of your founder, CEO, chair, lord. You create this kind of mess, right? I mean, the board has never been a body of independent oversight that is meant to deal with any of this.
That is correct. So that's my takeaway. The vote is on
Lululemon
June 25th.
I didn't think it'd be interesting.
And you go buy some sheer leggings.
Or just go to
vote out Chip
get
Wilson.
some Adidas stuff or something. I don't know. All right, that's. I'm assuming you're done.
I'm done.
Thank God. That's the Proxy Countdown for the week of June 15th, 2026. Join us soon next week when we jump back into the alternative democracy pool. For everyone to look out for shareholder shenanigans, dopey directors, scandalous CEO pay ratios, and wayward band-aids.